At his peak, Kid Rock's music felt everywhere. 14 million albums sold, MTV at full blast, a Detroit rapper reinventing himself as a blue-collar outlaw. Then, without scandal or sudden implosion, the world simply stopped sharing his songs. What really happened is not disappearance, but a deliberate retreat. It was the moment a shape-shifting star chose certainty over connection. What if the real mystery is not where he went, but what vanished with him? Detroit in the early 1990s was a city built on hustle, and Kid Rock was right in the middle of it. He started with basement demos and small-time rap shows, moving from local clubs to opening slots for hip-hop legends. His first album, Grit Sandwiches for Breakfast, landed in 1990, but national attention did not follow. Instead, he doubled down, pressing his own records and selling them out of car trunks, performing wherever someone would have him. By 1993, with the polyfuse method, the sound began to shift. Rap verses collided with rock guitar lines, and country samples crept in. The lyrics grew grittier, the beats got heavier. That collision felt messy and intentional, a kind of musical experiment that had not yet found its wider audience. The real turning point came in 1994, when Kid Rock pulled together a live band called Twisted Brown Trucker. What began as a rotating crew of Detroit musicians became a tight unit, bringing live drums, bass, and wild energy to every show. Nights blurred together, fueled by beer, weed, and whatever kept the van rolling. The title, Early Morning Stoned Pimp, was not just a joke, it was a nickname from a bandmate after a run of sleepless, substance-soaked sessions. For years, this was the grind. Wake up in one city, play to a half-full bar, crash on a stranger's couch, and do it again. Through it all, the band's chemistry deepened. They learned to blend genres not as a gimmick, but as survival. Detroit rap, outlaw country, and hard rock all living in the same set list. By the time the world noticed, that mix was already second nature. In 1998, the rules of music were wide open, and Kid Rock landed right in the center. Devil Without a Cause hit shelves that summer, selling over 14 million copies and turning a decade of local hustle into instant ubiquity. The album did not just sell, it exploded, powered by tracks like Bow It Daba and Cowboy, which sounded like nothing and everything on the radio at once. MTV's Total Request Live became a daily ritual for millions, and Kid Rock's videos crashed into living rooms alongside pop stars and rap icons, his name climbing the countdowns by sheer force of fan votes. That same year, festival crowds at Woodstock 1999 watched him stomp across the stage in a white fur coat, flanked by the Twisted Brown Trucker Band and a sea of pyrotechnics. The chaos felt communal. Rock, rap, and country fans all found something to shout along to, even if they could not agree on what to call it. For a stretch, genre did not matter. What mattered was volume, spectacle, and the sense that everyone was in on the same wild moment. Kid Rock became a bridge, Detroit grit meeting Southern outlaw, rap swagger tangled with arena rock excess. In the late 90s, being hard to pin down was an asset. The monoculture turned contradiction into commodity, and for a brief window it seemed like the party would never end. By the early 2000s, the idea of everyone hearing the same song at the same time was already slipping away. The notion of a single shared moment of listening was beginning to feel like a memory. The MTV show Total Request Live, once a daily meeting point for millions, began to lose its grip as channels multiplied and the internet offered endless choices. Radio playlists that had been able to put a single song into every car and bar in America began to fracture under the weight of new formats and niche stations. Instead of one national soundtrack, music became a collection of private feeds, each listener curating their own world, guided by algorithms and social networks. The shared rituals of voting for videos, calling in requests, and gathering around the television after school quietly faded. Artists who had once thrived on unpredictability now faced a new demand. Pick a side, declare an identity, and speak to a defined group. The space for contradiction shrank, and the culture that had rewarded Kid Rock's genre chaos was dissolving. It was replaced by a landscape where every bridge needed a label and every anthem was measured by its target audience. After years of straddling genres and audiences, Kid Rock made a business move that drew a clear line in the sand. In 2015, he signed with Broken Bow Records, a Nashville-based label known for country and heartland acts. The choice followed a brief stretch with Warner Brothers and came on the heels of his album First Kiss, a record already leaning into country and classic rock territory. Broken Bow was not a major pop or rock powerhouse. It was built for artists who knew their lane and wanted to drive it. For Kid Rock, this was not a retreat from the spotlight, but a calculated decision to consolidate his brand. The era of chasing every chart was over. Instead, he doubled down on the audience that showed up for him. Country radio listeners, blue-collar fans, and the Southern Festival circuit. Albums like Sweet Southern Sugar and later releases found a home in this new ecosystem. The broad, unpredictable reach of his MTV days narrowed, but what remained was loyal, familiar, and unmistakably his. The move was a mutual realignment, a quiet business choice that clarified who he was speaking to and who he was not. Pressure to adapt swept through the music industry as digital downloads took over. While most artists rushed to upload singles to iTunes and streaming platforms, Kid Rock held his ground. In 2008, All Summer Long became a breakout hit, blending Lynyrd Skynyrd and Warren Zevon into a summer anthem that topped charts across Europe and found heavy rotation on U.S. radio. Yet for 4 years, the track was nowhere to be found on iTunes. Fans could hear it on the radio, catch it in bars, or buy the full album on CD, but the single itself remained off the world's biggest digital storefront. Behind the scenes, Kid Rock argued that digital sales hurt artists and shortchanged albums, refusing to play by the new rules even as the industry shifted around him. Not until 2012 did All Summer Long finally land on iTunes, long after its peak. This wasn't a misstep or an oversight. It was a deliberate choice to resist the new order, even if it meant standing apart from the mainstream current. In 2013, Kid Rock rolled out a tour that rewrote the rules for big-name concerts. Instead of chasing arena glitz or VIP exclusives, he capped every ticket at $20, a price unheard of for an act with platinum records and a decade of radio hits. The show skipped the usual urban hotspots and instead played to military bases, Harley rallies, and county fairgrounds. Beer prices were lower, parking was free, and the set lists stretched long into the night. At each stop, the crowd looked less like a cross-section of pop radio and more like a gathering of working people, veterans, bikers, families in ball caps and boots. Fans did not just watch, they became part of the show, singing every word back and waving flags, turning each concert into a communal ritual. The logic was clear. If the mainstream would not come to him, he would make sure his music stayed reachable for those who still showed up. The tour made headlines for its affordability, but for Kid Rock it was a direct line to the people who never left. In 2003, Kid Rock went to court to take full control of Top Dog Records, the label he had helped build from his earliest days in Detroit. That settlement sealed his autonomy. From that point on, every album, every song, and every tour would answer to him alone. No outside company could dictate release schedules or creative direction. He had the final say. This was not just paperwork. It was a shield against the shifting priorities of major labels and the demands of a changing industry. While other artists negotiated for scraps of their own work, Kid Rock locked in a deal that let him steer his music and his business on his own terms. The catalog he had built, hits, deep cuts, everything in between, became an asset he controlled outright. With that control sealed, the possibility of compromise faded. He could choose his audience, set his boundaries, and keep the conversation on his own ground. The outcome was final and entirely his. Today, Kid Rock fills arenas, but only for those already listening. As culture fragments and artists choose sides, the cost of clarity becomes invisibility to the rest. In an age defined by belonging, sometimes what is lost is not relevance, it is a shared soundtrack. Where does that leave the rest of us?